My name is Jen Weber. I'm an engineer at Cardstack, and today I'm going to give you a quick tour of what it's like to work on the Cardstack application framework, as well as Embroider, which is one of Cardstack's key dependencies. If you're interested in helping to contribute to Cardstack or to packages like Embroider, this might give you a few clues about how to debug any challenges you might run into along the way. We'll also cover what Embroider is, and I'll show you how the work in progress CLI works in order to create new cards. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start my TypeScript compilers. All right, so what I'm going to do next is use the Cardstack CLI in order to generate a card and see it in the browser. Since I'm developing locally, I'm going to use the Cardstack dev flag set to true when I run the CLI. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want this card to depend on my local copy of the packages within the Cardstack monorepo, not the packages that are in NPM. I want to test this work against master. All right, so I'll run this command. And what it's done here is created an application for me in this directory. So if I follow this, I can see the app that's been generated for me by the CLI. And like any other Ember application, I can run it with Ember serve. So right now what's happening is it's starting up all of the components of the hub. It's generating dynamic code and initializing some of the plugins that are an important part of the Cardstack ecosystem. So if I go to localhost 4200, in just a moment, I should be able to see the welcome page of a card. All right, so here we are on our brand new card that was generated for us by the Cardstack CLI. Now, the work that I'm doing today is that I want to debug a problem with Embroider that it affects our Cardstack ecosystem as well as other people's apps as well. Anyone who's building with Ember might run into this problem too. So let me show you what the problem is, and then we'll get into fixing it. If I scroll up here, I can actually look at what the built output is of my application. Now, a Cardstack application uses Embroider, which is a tool that's in development that enables a different build system for Ember applications. Typically, Ember developers use the Ember CLI in order to build their application, and the output of the Ember CLI isn't compatible with things like Webpack and Rollup. So Embroider aims to let you use tools like Webpack and Rollup by pre-processing your Ember app in a way that makes them compatible with those tools. That gives you some incredible superpowers where you're able to experiment with some of the broader features of the JavaScript ecosystem, such as tree shaking, for example. So I want to take a look at the app that has been built by Embroider. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to copy this path here where my card has been built into. I'm going to see what's inside. So inside of this directory is the built output from Embroider. This is the stuff that's ready to be used by tools like Webpack. And I'm going to open up Babel config. And I'll show you the bug that we're dealing with right now. So one thing that's interesting about the Ember ecosystem is that Ember add-ons are able to rename themselves. One of the most common packages that renames itself is something called Ember Lodash. So Ember Lodash, you install it with Ember install Ember Lodash, but then when you actually use it in your application, you import straight from Lodash. It's renamed itself to Lodash within this environment. So the behavior that we're seeing in Embroider that's kind of strange, that's my job to fix today, is that Embroider is handling each individual module as a rename when it should just be using the renamed packages key to map between Ember Lodash and Lodash. It's processing everything twice. And whenever it's processing it, that's, some additional overhead or time that if you're working on an application at scale, you probably don't want to spend that cost every single time. You want this tool to be quick and efficient. And that's a theme right now in Ember in 2019 is making things high performant. So my goal right now is to take this and get rid of it essentially and have only the Ember Lodash mapping here. This whole file that you're looking at here is something that was generated as part of Embroider's build process. Within an Ember environment, it would just handle this renaming under the hood, but since Webpack is a separate tool, it doesn't know anything about Ember apps. We need to actually provide some mappings to handle things like renaming and follow the standards that are used by those other tools. All right, so I have a couple clues about how to fix this. I'm going to take a look at this issue where Ed has suggested what we need to do to fix it. So he and I have been pairing over the past couple weeks to work on improving Embroider and delivering this Cardstack CLI type experience where you can just create cards from the command line. So he gave me a couple clues here. So I'm going to open up Embroider. Make this change and then see what happens. So in that issue, the suggested course of action is to change rewrite add-on tree instead of taking the name of the add-on, which Embroider has passed along into this function. We're going to use the module name instead. So coming back over to my app, I'm going to stop that app and I want to make sure that I'm going to run Embroider using the changes that I've just made. So I'll use yarn add to create a dependency on my local copy of Embroider. I'll add compat, Webpack, and core. And what I'm expecting to see now is that my application still works, my card still renders. So let's have a look at that over here. All right, so we can see that our app is still working fine. Now I want to inspect the output that Embroider created. So we can follow this path here to look at the app. And this is an important part of debugging Embroider. You got to be able to look at what it has created and see what the changes are, because a lot of things need to be rewritten or rearranged under the hood. In addition, there are a lot of compatibility plugins for Embroider that help it overcome some of the most common bugs that would occur by using the most popular Ember add-ons. So it's doing a lot for you that lets you use Embroider right away, even though those other add-ons haven't upgraded their formats. So let's take a look here. And I want to look again at the Babel config. And it looks like I can see already that this file is much shorter. So here we're looking at renamed modules. We can see that Ember Lodash is no longer on this list, and it's just here under the renamed packages. So it looks like the fix that we made was successful. So coming back to Cardstack, some of the things that you can expect to see over the next few weeks is we're going to be further developing the CLI that lets you create cards of your own and run them within the hub environment with just one command. We're also going to be working on a quick start that makes it easier to learn how to use Cardstack to build your own creations. And we're going to continue developing Embroider, because any gains that we make there that enable tree shaking or loading in code dynamically are going to have huge returns for the power that we can give Cardstack users when they're building something of their own. Thanks for listening. If there's anything else you're curious to learn about the Card SDK or our work on Embroider, I'd love to hear from you.